If you want to talk about a separate issue, there will be a time and a place for that. But you are out of order, sir.
Yeah, you're out of order too, Ben. I'm not paying your property taxes.
Oh, come on, man. Please. The bill just came the other day. Come on, man.
Never. How's it going, everybody? We are live. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, February 2nd. Happy February, everybody. Happy February, Ben.
Happy February to you, young man. You know what? I think we should have a promotional deal. So, like a trivia contest, and whoever wins the trivia contest gets to pay my property tax bill. How about that, huh?
That's horrible. No one's doing that.
Oh, well.
Happy February, everybody. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, February 2nd is moments away. But before we do this, let's thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. They are sponsors. The Chicago Federation of Labor are sponsors of this program, as well as the Chicago Reader, chicagoreader.com. Go check it out. Subscribe for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. A lot of plans coming up for the Chicago Reader as far as the podcasting game as well, so be on the lookout for that. Chicago Reader, check them out. Fantastic publication, and Ben writes a column with the Chicago Reader. We're going to be talking about his latest column a little later on, but first, your song of the day, Ben. And your song of the day obviously comes from Frank. Frank just seems to know your taste.
Yeah.
Today, more of the same. Shake Your Groove Thing by Peaches and Herb.
Shake your groove thing. Peaches and Herb. They wrote that song?
I don't know.
Shake your groove thing. Yeah.
Okie doke. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Tuesday, February 2nd, and live from my apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Ben, stop shaking your groove thing. Today on the program, our Chicago Reader colleague returns. It's First Tuesday with Maya Dukmasova. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Lululemon Tuesday, and here's why. Great week. You have a good weekend, D?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's what I want to hear. Did you go anywhere?
No, I did not.
Okay, but you still had a great weekend. You're looking very good. Dennis is looking good these days.
You said that like 5 times now.
Yeah, well, it's something about you. Maybe you're shaved or something. Anyway, I had a great weekend. Watched The Little Things. That's Denzel's latest, Denzel Washington. I love Denzel. In my mind, I'm Denzel, my man. It's my man. There was a phase of my life where I went around saying, my man, because I was Denzel in my head.
I mean, that's like now. That's like 2021. You still say that.
Love Denzel. There's the good Denzel. Remember the Titans? There's the bad Denzel, Training Day. There's the sort of bad and good Denzel mixed together, Inside Man. There's the noble Denzel, Malcolm X.
He's got a good job in Hollywood, that Denzel.
What's that?
He's got a good job in Hollywood, that Denzel. Yeah. He got this Johnny Depp who has to like be a different character and do a lot of studying and all these character works. Denzel, they're just like, hey, can you just like be you? Just do that Denzel thing.
Yes, and it's a really great thing. Now he's the old Denzel from the Little Things, and I can relate. He's old and he's paunchy and he moves slow and he's a little slouched, and the world's just sort of getting him down, and he's haunted by the past. He's wise but weary, and maybe he doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning, but there's a killer on the loose. So Denzel's got to do Denzel. And I can relate, D. I move a little slow in the morning. In fact, I got to do yoga stretches every morning. As a matter of fact, yesterday at about 11 in the morning, I'm doing my yoga stretches. And my phone rings, ring-a-ling-a-ding-dong, and it's Dr. D. Ben, we have a reader meeting. Oops. And then in just a burst of honesty that'll never get you anywhere, folks, I told Dennis, I'm doing my yoga. Tell him I'm in a very important phone interview with newsmakers. Tell him I'm interviewing Lori Lightfoot. So what does he do? He tells the reader people, Ben's doing his yoga. Ratted out by the doctor. I come onto the Zoom call, and everyone's making fun of me. particularly a certain Karen, who's an editor at The Reader. She says I'm doing tree pose, which is actually true. I was doing tree pose. Then she says I'm wearing Lululemon, which is a high-end brand of yoga pants with a see-through booty. It's the rage. In fact, Dennis is wearing it right now.
That see-through booty. All about that see-through booty.
You know, as Karen pointed out, it's like you're basically mooning everybody in your yoga class. That's me living large in my Lululemons with my see-through booty. I'm mooning the mailman. Anyway.
You may need to start running your copy by me before the show. Mooning the mailman? What are we talking about here?
That could be Mooning the Mailman Tuesday, and here's why. Anyway, woke up Tuesday to see that Bernie's mittens are back in the news, the story that'll never die. I wanted to call it Mittengate, but Dennis said, no more Gates. You have Bill Gates. You have Stacey Davis Gates. I was like, yeah, what about Henry Davis Gates? He's not even a Gates. He's just Henry Davis. Oh, yeah. So from now on, I'm just going to say fence. Get it, D? Gate, fence, mitten, fence.
Oh, once again. Okay, moving forward, please send your here's what's on my mind and here's why column to me before the show so I can proofread them.
Yes, you could edit it, I know. Anyway, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Ben, there's so much news in the world. How can you concentrate on Bernie's mittens? There's Biden meeting with Republicans, gearing up to sell out working-class Americans with a deal that only moderates can love. There's Trump hiring new lawyers, getting ready for a second impeachment. A pair of the old lawyers want to act like real defense lawyers, and Trump wants lawyers to argue that the election really was stolen. Apparently, there's an extreme... and the headline in the New York Times says the extreme wing tests its power over the GOP. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is batshit crazy, ladies and gentlemen, is giving the middle finger of sorts to the Adam Kinzingers of the world, saying, I own MAGA. You're nothing but my little bitch. So why would I want to talk about Bernie's mittens when it's all these other important issues to talk about? I'll tell you why, because it's trending. If you recall, I was always out of the loop because I don't follow Twitter. And so people do, like Maya and Ramona and Mick would always tell me, Ben, you didn't see on Twitter that it's Groundhog Day, and everybody's making jokes on Twitter. But now I have this new Google update thing. So you go to search and you click on Google to do a search, and up pops the top trending searches of the day. So I know, for instance, that Dolly Parton's Medal of Freedom is trending. I went to that, and it turns out that Donald Trump had offered Dolly the Medal of Freedom, but she turned him down. Something about her husband being sick. So anyway, Barack Obama went on the Steve Colbert show, and Colbert said, why doesn't Dolly Parton have a Medal of Freedom? And Barack Obama said, good idea, I'll call Joe. And so he called Biden, and Biden reached out to Dolly, and Joe offered it to her. But now Dolly Parton doesn't want it because it would look political. And so she's favoring Biden over Trump. And this, Dr. D, is what America is keyed on. So they don't care about Biden and the GOP and the size of the relief pan. Anyway, further down the list, but still ranked high, is mitten fence. That's, of course, an allusion to when Bernie wore mittens at the inauguration, and it was it was a meme that just dominated the news for like 3 days. It's still out there. Apparently, a former UFC Berkeley professor wrote an op-ed for a San Francisco newspaper saying Bernie, quote, manifests privilege for wearing his meme-evoking inauguration outfit. And I'm going to quote from the essay. I puzzled and fumed as an individual as I strove to be my best possible teacher. What did I see? What did I think my students should see? A wealthy, incredibly well-educated and privileged white man showing up for perhaps the most important ritual of the decade in a puffy jacket and huge mittens. Bernie manifests privilege, white privilege, male privilege, and class privilege in ways that my students could see and feel. Yeah, I had two thoughts when I saw this story. Number one, I thought, come on, that's so unfair to Bernie. I thought he was dressed kind of nice. And number two, I think she had a good point. I mean, women, liberate yourself. You should emulate Bernie. Throw away your heels. Dress like me and Dennis and Bernie in comfortable clothes. By the way, at a very serious level, I don't know if you saw this, but AOC, she felt threatened during the insurrection at the Capitol, and part of the reason is she was wearing heels. She wished she had worn sneakers so she could run away from the insurrectionists, who she rightly thought would perhaps Well, kill her maybe. Anyway, so I think the professor is making a very important point. That it's about time that the standards were lower for women, and so they could dress like me and Dennis and Bernie. Of course, that story is trending largely because Fox News is promoting it, part of their effort to show America how idiotic lefties can behave. Look on the bright side, Professor. If Bernie's dress is the worst thing you're facing in your life right now, you got it pretty good. We got a great show today, and we should have done a little more pre-show prep. It is not Maya who will be joining us, but the great Miles Kampf Lassin will be joining us from In These Times. Maya will be joining me at First Tuesday later tonight, a virtual First Tuesday, I might add. Miles will be wearing a tuxedo, part of his effort to dress nicer when he comes on the Ben Joravsky show.
Changing the title now. On,
yes, it's okay. It's no problem. We didn't do great pre-show planning. Actually, we did great pre-show planning, but we didn't talk about the guests. So anyway, Miles Kampf Lassin will be joining us. He'll be talking about, Biden's negotiations with the Republicans. Is he selling out to working class America? He'll be talking about the madness over at GameStop and whether we should tax transactions. Here, I say it's about time we do that. And we'll probably get into some discussion of local Chicago politics as well. Plenty of political talk ahead with Miles Kampf Lassin. But before we do that, the young man from Alton, the man they call the doctor, with the news.
I just don't know how I'm going to edit that intro.
You'll figure something out.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Dennis. Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon, we need to talk about tonight's big event. Yes, it is the first Tuesday of February, and yes, there is a First Tuesday virtually live from the Hideout. Well, yeah, she's not going to be on today's show, but she's going to be there tonight. Maya Duke-Masova. Ben, tell us about it, who you got lined up, and how pumped are you at the moment?
I'm very pumped about it. Yana Kochanov from Chalkbeat and Gregory Pratt from the Chicago Tribune will be joining Maya and myself to discuss the situation confronting Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the Chicago Teachers Union as they wrangle over whether to open the schools. And, I did a shout out about this in the Reader's newsletter. I'm very open about my view of the world. Maybe it's time to hear what other people have to say. Do you think that's a good idea, D? So a couple of outstanding journalists who've really been following this closely, the political end of it, the science end of it, whether it's actually safe to open the schools, whether we should trust the Board of Education when they say, don't worry, everything's great, no problem, just show up. So the politics of it, the science of it, and it should be a really good discussion. It starts at 7 o'clock tonight. And
all right, now kind of explain how this explain how this is going to work. Don't show up at the Hideout, right?
Please don't show up at the Hideout. Nobody will be at the Hideout. It's all virtual. In fact, I should have that. You know what? I should have written it down, D. The little website that you got to go to. Where is it?
The link?
Yes, the link. I should have written it down. Uh-oh, not good pre-show planning.
Boy. Well, how am I going to edit that out? All right, now find First Tuesday on Facebook, everybody. Just find the link there. You'll be able to go to check out the First Tuesday tonight happening virtually. Do not show up at the Hideout. Once again, I repeat, do not show up at the Hideout. I mean,
and also just to tell you, it's going to cost $5, and part of it is to raise money for the Hideout. The Hideout has been closed for I don't know how long, D. Since March, so it's to help the Hideout. It's a good cause. So a lot of great political discussion, and you help the Hideout.
There you go. Check it out tonight. Local news. Let's do it. We begin in Chicago, and our coverage of the ongoing dispute between the Chicago mayor and our Chicago Teachers Union continues. Remember, Mayor Lightfoot and the CPS really want the teachers to go back to their classrooms, and CTU has been like, no way, man, we're not doing that. This pandemic, you're crazy. What are you talking about? And then meanwhile, CPS is like, come on, quit being wimps. Just get in that dang classroom, would ya? That about explains it, right?
Sums it up.
All right, so Before we get to today's news, let's find out what went down over the weekend. The headline reads from the Chicago Sun-Times in Nadir Issa, CPS won't lock out teachers this week, pushing back strike threat in hopes of final resolution. The city of Chicago and its public school teachers who spent the weekend haggling over how and when to return in-person classes and setting the stage for a possible teacher strike. It means some 70,000 Chicago pupils who had planned to return to the classroom today will instead continue to stay home for remote learning, unless they have special permission to work from home. Teachers are otherwise required to report to their schools today to prepare for in-person learning with students on Tuesday, Lightfoot said during a late afternoon press conference on Sunday. In a tweet, CTU said CPS data shows, quote, more than 100 positive COVID-19 cases in school buildings between January 9th and January 23rd. We can survive remote learning, but we can't survive remote learning if we don't survive COVID-19, the tweet said. Ben, we have some more to cover here, but your thoughts on what we've just covered there.
Well, this is it's Groundhog Day, so it's sort of a repeat of everything that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks on this show in regards to the teachers and the CPS. But the bottom line is there's a tremendous amount of distrust on the part of teachers toward the central office in terms of its ability to open the schools in a safe and secure way. And this is a reality that's existed for many years, predating Lori Lightfoot. This goes back to like the 70s, like a healthy amount of distrust between teachers and the central office. And I've been seeing this long before Karen Lewis took control of the Chicago Teachers Union and made it more radical, made it more lefty. And I know that's like the trend analysis going on in the world today. We'll get more into that in terms of positioning the union's grievance with Lori Lightfoot in this larger political context. But the reality is that teachers have a healthy, and I underscore healthy, sort of, what's the right word I want to say? Distrust for the proclamations that come from the central office. You just hear some of the same stories played out over and over again, and you've come to not believe them as time goes on. And that's essentially what's at play here. You know, it's like you see something on the news if you're a teacher and you realize it completely contradicts what you see every day. We had fun with this last week, but it really wasn't funny when we talked about how Mayor Lightfoot and Janice Jackson last week said, what they say, D? They spent like this. The number actually varied. I'll be interested to see what the reporters have to say at the first Tuesday tonight. How much was actually spent cleaning up the schools? And then teachers go to schools, and what do they see? A dead mouse. So it's like you spend all that money cleaning up the classroom, and you see a dead mouse, and that just feeds into this distrust that teachers have. So if you're asking teachers to suddenly believe whatever it is that the central office is saying, you're sort of asking them to go against a trend that's, it's like as long as I can remember. I've been around a long, long time, goes back to the 70s. And so really, D, that's sort of like at the heart of this thing. And no mayor has ever figured out a way to make teachers have confidence in the proclamations and the ultimatums and the declarations that come out of central office. I think we had more or less peace, and I put that in quote, in the 90s and the early O's. But that's when the Board of Ed was giving teachers raises and using as the money for those raises cash that should otherwise have been going to their pension funds. Oh my goodness, I remember that debate. But like nobody's worried about pension funds. You know what I mean? That's so down the road. And teachers were relatively happy, content, because they were getting raises and there was summer school. And so if you wanted to work extra, you could pick up cash working summer school. So this is just, like I said, this is an age-old struggle in Chicago between the people who run the public schools and the teachers who work there, D. And we're just seeing it play out with COVID as the backdrop.
All right. Also, over the weekend, this uber local story that we've been covering literally every day for the last 3 weeks went national.
On the verge of a strike, Chicago public schools will not return to in-person learning as planned today.
That was Mika Brzezinski, co-host of what I've heard is becoming Ben Joravsky's favorite political talk show, MSNBC's Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough.
Can I weigh in at this point to say something about Morning Joe, just briefly, Dee?
Yeah.
I have a confession to make. I never heard more. Have I still never heard Morning Joe? I don't think I've ever seen a Morning Joe show. But years ago, a dear friend of mine, Ed Pipes, if you're listening, Ed was a big watcher of cable news, and he came to my house to visit. And of course, we don't have cable, so he was like, "Where's cable? I got to watch Morning Joe." And he wasn't watching Morning Joe back then because he agreed with him. He was watching Morning Joe because it fired up. He disagreed with everything Morning Joe had to say. My dear friend Ed is a lefty, much more liberal than Morning Joe. Morning Joe is a former Republican congressman from Florida, who is in the last couple of years moved more to the center because Donald Trump was just too obnoxious for Morning Joe. So anyway, but back in 2008, Ed was all up in arms because Morning Joe was so biased, in his humble opinion, against Barack Obama, who was running for president against John McCain. So that's how I first heard of Morning Joe, D.
Yeah, it sucks.
So I still have never seen. But I remember was it a year ago? Morning Joe was trending on Twitter, trending on Google searches, because he was involved in a fight with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was just, Donald Trump lost his freaking mind so many times. Donald Trump was like making up allegations that Joe Scarborough had something to do with the disappearance of an aide. Remember this, Steve? Mm-hmm. He just made the stuff up as he went, typical Donald Trump. So then, the lefty in me, the liberal in me, was like sort of favorable to Joe's. Oh, yeah, he's fighting Trump. He must be okay. It's sort of like the Adam Kinzinger thing. And, anybody who's against Trump's got to be sort of okay. By the way, Heidi Henry will be on the show. She'll be big time coming up this week. Can't wait. Heidi Henry and Murray Briel, the Heartland Mamas, will be coming on to talk about Adam Kinzinger and other things. So anyway, I kind of found myself being sympathetic to Morning Joe, even though I have no idea really what he sounds like or looks like or acts like.
Oh, it's awful. He's just bossing that Mika lady around. Mika, come on, Mika. Oh, Mika.
Is that a real good Morning Joe imitation? You were doing it earlier today in the pre-show.
Oh, Mika. Mika, go get me a coffee. I'm your co-host, dude.
Do Lori Lightfoot.
I'm not doing any impressions. All right. So Morning Joe actually had Mayor Lightfoot on their program Monday. But first, Sunday, when CPS President Janice Jackson was invited to CBS onto a show with maybe the most intimidating title I've ever heard, Face the Nation. Oh, God. Double J spoke about their ongoing tussle with the teachers. Let's hear the audio.
Chicago Public Schools CEO Dr. Janice Jackson joins us. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
The mayor has demanded that elementary and middle schools open tomorrow. Will the teachers union go on strike?
Well, right now we're in the middle of negotiations that have really heated up over the past couple of weeks. Our goal is to reopen schools as planned tomorrow on February 1st for students in our K through 8 grades. It's also important to note we did bring back our early childhood students and some of our students with disabilities earlier this month and had real good success with reopening. So we are looking forward to restarting again.
What happens to teachers if they don't show up tomorrow?
Well, the goal right now is to get a resolution. CTU has made it clear that they want a deal. We share those same sentiments, but we're still far apart on a couple of key issues, such as vaccination and how we account for accommodations for individuals who maybe are just, petrified to come back into schools because of COVID.
Brilliant duck and dodge. You notice that, D? I tell you what, that was well done, Janice Jackson. That was a direct question. What happens to teachers if they don't show up? And, well, our goal is a resolution, and then she just took off. I hope you were paying attention, Tony Preckwinkle. That's an effective duck and dodge. You don't call attention to the duck and dodge, but you do the duck and dodge. J.B. Pritzker somewhere is nodding his head going, well done, well done. Game recognizes game. Remember that's part of the problem right there. Earlier on, remember Lori was really tough? I'll take your car. Well, that's like a metaphor. But they were really tough with the teachers, talking about firing them, perhaps, if they didn't show up to the classroom, not paying them, locking them out of their computers so they can't do remote. It was a tougher attitude. Now, it seems like as a sign that they may be easing up on that toughness, they don't directly answer the question. So view that as progress. Do you follow what I'm saying? Instead of saying, what happens to teachers that don't show up? What's the lady's name on Face the Nation? Whatever her name is.
I don't know.
Let's just say her name is Pat Whalen, because he's the only guy I know who watches Face the Nation every Sunday morning. He texts me, Pat, I just watched Face the Nation. Anyway, so let's say the host's name is Pat Whalen. What happens to teachers if they don't show up, Pat Whalen? I'll tell you what happens to them. We take them down into the basement. We rough them up. That's how we deal with these punk teachers in the city of Chicago. Now, that would have been direct answer to a question. But now everybody's getting along. So instead she goes, well, our goal is resolution. And by the way, did I tell you how much I love Denzel's new movie? It's a great movie. It's an old and weary Denzel, a little paunchy, not quite like the Denzel in Remember the Titans, at which point the Face the Nation lady would be like, oh, wow, that's a brilliant duck and dodge, discussing Denzel's latest.
All right, so that was the gist of Janice Jackson's appearance on CBS's Face the Nation. Way to go, Janice, on Face the Nation there. All right, and now moving on to Mayor Lightfoot's appearance.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.
And thank God, no, she was not the interviewer. She was the interviewee on MSNBC's Morning Joe program. And sadly, Ben, I know you're going to be bummed here, but your boy, Mr. Morning Joe himself, Joe Scarborough, was not present for the interview.
No.
Yeah.
Who? What? To quote Pat Whalen, what? Who? Or wait, what? For the FanDuel commercial. Remember that day? Wait, what?
Yeah. Not present. I imagine it was something like, Mika, what's next? Chicago? I'm going to the bathroom.
So who did the interview?
Well, it was Mika.
Oh, okay.
The other person?
Oh, all right. Okay, the other one. Okay, good. So she asked the tough question.
And we have a surprise guest as well, interviewing Lori Lightfoot. We'll get to that in moments. I do have clips. So let's hear what I got from Lori Lightfoot's Monday morning interview with Morning Joe. Take it away, Mika.
Mayor Lightfoot, explain what is keeping teachers from returning to the classrooms. Where are the shortfalls that are not keeping them safe?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on this morning. Let me be very clear. Our schools are safe. We've invested over $100 million in ventilation, other safety protocols, making sure that we have masks, safety health screening, temperature checks, all the things that you would expect that the CDC guidance has told us that we know makes sense to mitigate any issues in schools. We've looked at and followed every study across the globe, including here in Chicago by our local experts. Our schools are safe, and you don't have to take my word for it. We've had 3 weeks of safely and implementing our plan until the teachers union blew it up.
Yes, that dastardly teachers union blew it up. Everything was going so well. And then the teachers union destroyed it. Oh, it's like, I just remember those, like when I was a kid, I'd play a game. It wasn't a very subtle game to you. It would be like, I'd have 2 dolls and the dolls would have a fight. And I would go, make the dolls. And that's kind of like the way we're supposed to view things in Chicago. The world was beautiful. What a great, lovely city we had. COVID was not a problem. And then the damn dastardly teachers union came and they blew it up. The question is like, what is keeping teachers from the classroom? The obvious answer is COVID-19. Ever heard of it? A pandemic. Yes, things are just normal out there. Everybody's just like, when it comes to teachers in a classroom, everybody forgets there's a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? And it really is a form of schizophrenia. Because on one hand, they'll be like, well, it's good news is that the number of people who are getting COVID is falling, but bad news, the number of people who have COVID, more are dying, okay? And there's this new strain that's coming in that we're not quite sure if the vaccine even heals or protects us from. But meanwhile, what's keeping those teachers from the classroom? Oh, I wonder what it could be. It's so convenient how, like, we forget. It's like the ability to compartmentalize in your brain, like, these different issues. And you know what? Many of my friends who are really, they tell me this, D, I'm going to really bend over backwards to be, what? More open-minded. My good friend Kenny Davis, he always tells me, Ben, you have to consider all the issues here. And so maybe it is possible that you can have a pandemic raging, which has got you worried and has you making all these proclamations, keeping track of the number of people who got it, number of people who are dying, and still open the schools. But I don't know. But it's really hard when the opening question is, what is keeping teachers from the classroom? Kind of forgetting the whole pandemic thing that's been going on for about a year, D.
But wait, there's more.
Now, look, I get it. Teachers are concerned. They're scared, which is absolutely why we've been working literally night and day for the last 2 weeks in particular, 70 plus meetings since June to get a deal done. I think we can still get a deal done. We are working diligently to make that happen. A strike would be catastrophic, mostly for our kids. But we're pushing as hard as we can to seal these last few remaining but tough issues. It's not about we don't want teachers to be safe. It's absolutely not about we don't respect the rights of organized labor. Chicago's a labor town.
Wow. Well, she was about to go somewhere with that. I guess we're going to come back to that in a little while. But yes, no. So I get it. Well, we're not coming back to that?
That's all the audio I had from that comment.
All right. Well, I'll pick up on that. I get it. Teachers are concerned. That's why we've been working night and day to get a deal done. I get it. Teachers are concerned. So that's about as close as people in Chicago, powers that be in Chicago, will come to acknowledging the concerns of teachers. It's like the statement you make before the but. You know what I'm saying? Well, I get it. Teachers are concerned. But get in that freaking classroom right now. I don't want to hear about that dead mouse you found in there. We spent $100 million cleaning up the classroom. So that's it. Somehow or other, every mayor we've had since the last couple of years of Daley has been incapable of sounding like he or she genuinely cares about teachers. And it has a lot to do with the role that the teachers union plays in the politics of Chicago. And we're going to get to that now. The part of the quote that just got cut off, she went on this riff. And I got to give her credit. I'm going to just say from a political standpoint, it was like a brilliant riff. She went on a riff where she essentially said, Chicago's a very union town. I love unions. I support unions. There's like 40 unions. I'm paraphrasing this in the city of government. And we get along with all of them except the right-wing leadership of the Chicago Fraternal Order Police and this union, meaning the Chicago Teachers Union. And just there, she set up this equivalency between the Fraternal Order of Police, who by and large are, how do I put this, D? I would say out of touch, politically speaking, with most people in the city of Chicago. Chicago went, 83% for Biden over Trump? Something like that. And Fraternal Order of Police is run by a man, Johnny Canizera, who not only loves Donald Trump, but walks around with a T-shirt that says, I love Donald Trump, or something to that effect, a sign that says, I love Donald Trump, okay? So I would say he's really out of just the mainstream, politically speaking. But you position that union with the teachers union. And the teachers union was all in for Joe Biden. They were all in for J.B. Pritzker. Yes, they were all in for Tony Preckwinkle. That didn't work out, and that's the roots of this problem, I'm sure, with Mayor Lori Lightfoot. But I would say that the Chicago Teachers Union is much more in line with just what ordinary Chicagoans are thinking than the Fraternal Order of Police. But if you contrast one with the other, that's like making it seem as though there's extreme on the left and there are extremists on the right, and I'm just trying to do the right thing for most people in Chicago, and that's why they hate me. And I think that, I think that's a pretty sharp political move by Lori Lightfoot. I'm not saying I agree with it. I absolutely oppose the notion that there's equivalency between the leaders of the Chicago Teachers Union and the leaders of the Fraternal Order of Police. I've said that many times. But I could see, not everybody's like me, D. I mean, I'm to the left. So I could see a lot of people, particularly in the north side of Chicago, just like nodding their heads going, yeah, she must be right if the Trumpsters don't like her and the teachers don't like her. Yeah. And then they're like, on top of that, like if you're a parent really frustrated with your child being home every day and the inconveniences that causes, and you realize that there is something lost, obviously, when you're doing remote learning over a computer as opposed to into a classroom. It's just like, yeah, I'm with Lori in that. I could see it happening. I know my Northsiders. I could see my Northsiders nodding their head. Yeah. This just makes sense. It's right. It's not fair. It's like those extremists on the left and those extremists on the right. Brilliant move, Lori Lightfoot. This is her first time in public office, but she's showing a lot, D. Good. Rahm didn't even pretend that. When Rahm came in, he just took on all the unions. But then Rahm learned. Got to be strategic. You got to pick and choose the unions you fight. And the go-to union that the politicians in Chicago want to fight is the Chicago Teachers Union. Because they can go on strike, and they will go on strike. And that's an inconvenience to everybody. And so it's easy to stir people up against them. So Rahm went after the teachers union big time. And by the way, that alliance, that's kind of a quiet alliance between our mayors, Rahm, Daley, Lori Lightfoot, and corporate Chicago, conservative Republican corporate Chicago. The one thing they share is like an animus toward the Chicago Teachers Union. And this goes back to the days of Karen Lewis. They can't stand it. Just the notion that these teachers would think they have the right to make demands of the powerful. I've been watching, what's the name of this show, The Undoing. It's a long story, but I actually got HBO in order to watch the Denzel movie. Yeah, I wasn't gonna pirate off a friend. No, I went out and got HBO so I could watch Denzel. Now I'm watching The Undoing, which is an incredibly stupid episodic TV show, which I cannot believe I love as much as I do. I'm a little embarrassed to say. But there's Donald Sutherland plays this like nasty, mean, unbelievably rich, I don't know what he's, retiree, but he lives in this enormous penthouse apartment somewhere on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. He's got, money is definitely no object to this dude. Billions he must have billions. And he's mean. He's like, I will make you do this because I'm a mean SOB. And that's the kind of people that mayors of Chicago listen to when it comes to the teachers union. I remember Kenny G weighing in. Ken Griffin hated the Chicago Teachers Union. With like urging Mayor Rahm, break up the teachers. Bruce Rauner. Oh my God. In the early days of Rahm. Come on, Rahm. We're going to talk about this tonight at First Tuesdays. I think the powerful and the well-to-do elite of Chicago just despise the Chicago Teachers Union. They got the ears of the mayor. And the mayor realizes that that's a good foe to have to a certain degree. If you want the North Side, if you want the Gold Coast, and what you do is you say you're really doing it for poor black kids. You're waging a war against the teachers union on behalf of poor black kids. It's a very astute political strategy. I got to give her a lot of credit, Dee, for following. So she's isolating the teachers from there's the good unions and then there's the bad unions. She's like, I'm going, you know what, Dee? When I saw that quote, I'm like, oh, that's a good move. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying I welcome it, but politically, shrewd move. Northsiders everywhere drinking their coffee going, yes. Why can't we all get along and do what our mayor says? I trust my mayor more than I trust Stacey Davis Gates. And by the way, Dee, the Sun-Times, come on. I sent this picture to you. Did you see this picture on the front page of the Sun-Times?
Yeah.
That is the worst picture you guys could have found of Jesse Sharkey. I'm not saying that was an editorial stance by the Chicago Sun-Times, but good God, Jesse, good-looking guy. Where'd you get this picture? It's I don't know what, it looks like he's snarling. I don't know, this is contrast. And Lori looks great. Lori looks like a leader, a mayor. Jesse's like, Chicago, man. Chicago, basically, if you're in the sides of the teachers union, you're pretty much on the outs in the city of Chicago. I would have to say, D. You're on the outs. By the way, did the teachers union get a spot on the Morning Joe show? Did they get interviewed on the Morning Joe show?
No, believe it or not.
Were they on Face the Nation?
Wait, no.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, we want to hear from the teachers union. But let's hear from Lori Lightfoot.
Well, we want to hear from the teachers union. In fact, here's Jesse Sharkey on that comment you made about his picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now,
okay, can't hear you. All right.
I don't know. Come on, Sun-Times, man. You could do a little better with a photo of Jesse Sharkey. Good God, dang, look at this picture.
I saw it. Yeah,
There's
there's been better pictures of Jesse Sharkey.
It's a good-looking man, Sharkey. Come on, Sun-Times, you get a better picture.
Oh, every picture of you is just beautiful. I bet in the newspaper, huh, Ben?
I don't even put pictures of me in there.
Oh, wait. Okay.
I'll tell you this: when you put Johnny C in there, Johnny Canizera's looking always dapper. Okay, if I had the teachers, you got that little, how he lets his beard grow in a little bit. I'm looking good. It's like a Johnny Depp look. I just had Johnny Depp on my mind because you said it. I don't think Johnny Depp ever had that look. No, it's like old boy. I always forget his name. Find him so annoying. American Idol, that dude. He's always got that look with it. You know what I mean? He's not really shaving, just kind of half shaving.
Oh, Simon Cowell.
No. Simon Cowell's the British guy who's really tough. I think that sucked. No, the other guy, the real glib, smug guy who would interview the contestants.
I can't remember his name. Ryan Seacrest. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Seacrest.
Right.
Johnny Canizera has that Seacrest look. He's letting it grow in again. Sometimes loves it. I go, let's get another picture of Johnny C in there. Come on, guys. Got to get a better picture of Jesse Sharkey. Fair is fair. It's
kind of even Steven here, Catanzara. I know we do, have comments about you and your time at the Fraternal Order of Police, but we did just compare you to Ryan Seacrest. So,
Good-looking guy. I mean, Ryan Seacrest's a good-looking guy. I think he's smug, and you find him exceedingly annoying, but good-looking guy. All right, come on, Sun-Times. Let's get a better picture. Do they got a picture in the Tribune? No, they didn't put anybody. They got Joe Biden in a mask. That's it. So.
Okay, well, I have one more piece of audio to play from Lori Lightfoot's appearance on Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough. Mika!
Wait, it wasn't with Joe Scarborough. It was with Mika.
But the
Joe's
show,
like, I'm busy.
But Morning Joe is for some reason, he was like in the can or something. I don't know where he was during this interview. But
I have a question. Why do they call it Morning Joe if Mika's there too?
Because his name's, it's like coffee and his name's Joe. You know what I mean? I don't think we're supposed to think that hard about this.
I see. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
All right. Now, on to what? What's so funny?
Thinking too much, Ben. You're thinking too much.
Yeah, focus, Ben. Focus.
You're thinking too much. Focus, Ben. That's why I did so bad in the SATs. D's, I could go on that tangent. In the ACTs, I'd be like, oh, it's a multiple choice question. It could be this, it could be that, it could be the other thing. And they'd be like, stop thinking about it, Benny. Just answer a freaking question. Move along.
Okay.
But it could be this, it could be that, it could be the other thing.
Okay, now to our surprise interviewer on MSNBC Morning Joe. Ben, do you know who this is at all?
No, I have absolutely no idea.
Well, let's take a guess.
know.
Take a few guesses. Who it could be interviewing Lori Lightfoot on Morning Joe, minus Joe.
So it's not Morning Joe. Ryan Seacrest. He stopped in.
All right.
Hi, everybody.
It's not Ryan Seacrest. One more guess.
Who's the other guy in American Idol? Randy. It's Randy from American Idol.
You're not even trying. All right, so let's find out who our surprise interviewer is.
Mayor Lightfoot, Al Sharpton.
Yeah, it's Al Sharpton.
What was he doing there?
I don't know.
Well, what was his question?
Mayor Lightfoot, Al Sharpton.
All right, well, I have the question here. Here we go.
Is there third parties, clergy, outside influences that can help you to try to come to terms that can deal with both sides of this? Because at the end of the day, the students are the ones that are suffering with education, but you don't want to put their health at risk, but you don't want teachers to feel their health is at risk.
Well, look, you hit the nail on the head. We absolutely understand the concerns and fears of teachers, which is why, starting in October, we started a process for accommodations for teachers. If you are somebody who yourself has an underlying medical condition, if you are the primary caretaker for someone who has an underlying health condition, you don't have to come to in-person learning. We've given accommodations, thousands of accommodations for those teachers. We're trying to see if there is more that we can do. We put a very specific proposal on the table. We're waiting for the teachers union to give us a response.
Yeah, what a duck and a dodge there. By the way, Al, did you get the notion that Al Sharpton was himself offering himself up? I'll do it. I'll be the intermediary.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
But it was a great question. I give Sharpton credit. I haven't heard him in a while. Sounds like he's like smoking like 2 packs a day. I get the same issue. Al, we gotta drink tea or something.
Mayor Lightfoot, Al Sharpton.
But no, clearly they need some kind of intermediary. You're absolutely correct, Al Sharpton. I give you credit, zeroing in on it right away. You know, this again. There is tension. Lori Lightfoot's going on the Morning Joe show, pretending as though all is peace and love with the Chicago Teachers Union. You know, we've been meeting with them. That in itself is a problem. And I'll repeat what I say over and over again. When the leaders of the NBA decided they wanted to open up the season after COVID had shut it down for about, I don't know how many weeks, maybe a month, the leader of the Players Union met with one of, official with ESPN or Walt Disney, who was going to be televising it, to talk about, just in general terms, what had to be done. It was an informal meeting between Chris Paul and the head of the ESPN. They didn't go to negotiations with lawyers and HR guys in a room. You know, if you just keep reciting the number of meetings that your lawyers are sent into the room to say, don't give an inch on this until we're ready to give an inch. And so these aren't productive meetings that build bridges of communication between people. I've been at negotiating meetings, D. Good God. The old days of the Reader when we were negotiating with the old ownership of the Sun-Times, long ancient history. But they wanted to drag things out. They would argue over every I and every T. Well, that's not a dot over the I. Every now and then, Ted was his name. Very learned man, very smart guy. Was negotiating for the union, for the other side. Would give like a discussion on the Taft-Hartley law. And of course, I didn't know about Taft-Hartley, so I couldn't argue with him. I didn't even know what relevance it had, but he was just dragging things out. So you keep saying you had 70 meetings. That doesn't mean anything. That just means you're dragging things out. So yes, Sharpton's correct. There needs to be some kind of intervention between Lori Lightfoot and the leaders of the teachers union. I always get a feeling that with Lori, it's Stacey Davis Gates. She really's got this just animus toward Stacey Davis Gates. Don't know why. You get the feeling, D. You know what I'm saying? She won't even mention her name. Remember, she wouldn't be in the same room as her. I don't get it. So yes, they could use some intervention. Now, it could be that the teachers union is just already gearing up, got a candidate ready to run against Lori Lightfoot in 2023. Good God, D. 2023 is just 2 years down the road. Could be. But it didn't have to be that way. You know what I'm saying? There could have been just like an informal meeting. I know that when I say this, I know it's so unrealistic. Powerful people don't concede anything. They don't just meet informally. I guess in the NBA they did. But those are high-priced talent. You know, LeBron James could shut down the season if he said, no, I'm not going to participate. So they had to do everything they could to win over the LeBron James and the Chris Pauls of the world before the season would begin again. Apparently, they don't have that same attitude in Chicago toward teachers. Shut up, get in that classroom, get there now. I'm going to meet with you 70 times. I'm going to bring in the HR guy, and he's going to recite like specific clauses of our contract. It's like a form of torture. Put you in a room, a windowless room. No, it's virtual now. So even worse, you're in Zoom. You're in Zoom hell. And the HR guy is going, pursuant to section 425 of the contract with the teachers union, you'll see that in code 1842, and then Lori Lightfoot will go on the Morning Joe show. We've had 70 meetings. Yeah, they're forms of torture. It's not like you were bending over backward to reach an accord. Oh, I know what I could do. I'll torture those bastards. I'll make them sit in Zoom meetings. But I admit I have sort of a bias against Zoom meetings. So maybe I'm exaggerating how horrible they are. But I mean, on one hand, you got the reality of the distrust, years and years of distrust toward the leaders of the Chicago public schools by teachers. You would think that as a mayor, you would try to what? Undercut that early on. Find some way to just try to make peace. Al Sharpton was right on, D. I got to give him credit. The guy is not even from Chicago, but he figured our city out in a moment.
So there it was. Mayor Lori Lightfoot's appearance on national television over the weekend on MSNBC's Morning Joe. Ben, you seem to really like it.
Huge fan of Morning Joe now, even though he wasn't even on that show. Can you do your Morning Joe imitation one more
Mika,
time?
Come on, Mika. Where's my coffee?
Now do Mika. What did she say?
I'm not doing impressions of women.
Do Governor Pritzker on Morning Joe.
No, let's just move on.
Oh, come on.
So that was over the weekend. And no, students did not return to classrooms again on Monday, which, by the way, just saying, probably would have been a snow day, right?
Yes. Very good point. Would have been a snow day, so it's like a wash.
So, But here we are to Tuesday, today's news, and the following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Nadir Issa. Chicago Public Schools teachers will not be locked out of remote learning this week as a gesture of good faith. Aw, while really nice. A little nice there. A little sweet within the sour. While negotiations with the Chicago Teachers Union continue, backing off a threat that likely would have triggered a strike. The school system called off in-person classes Tuesday and Wednesday and will continue remote learning to allow more time for an agreement with the union on how and when to reopen all elementary schools for the first time during the pandemic. We have a quote from, it's a joint statement. Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Janice Jackson said, quote, "We have secured agreement on one other open issue and made substantial progress on a framework that we hope will address the remaining issues." It goes on here to say, "We are calling for a 48-hour cooling off period that will hopefully lead to a final resolution on all open issues. As a result of the progress we have made and as a gesture of good faith for now, teachers will retain access to their Google Suite."
Could you imagine, by the way, had they opened the schools in the middle after that snowstorm? First, nobody would show up anyway. Then it would look really bad. So what they did is if I know the brains, the people that run City Hall, here's what we're going to do. We kidnap. No one would show up anyway. What we'll say is we'll have a cooling off period, okay? Get that out there. Papers will throw that in. Cooling off. In fact, it did. Yeah, I think it's the headline in the Tribune. Yeah, officials call for cooling off. Yeah, Tribune bought it, man. Yeah, it's a cooling off period. Meanwhile, we have like 12 inches of snow. Nobody can get to school anyway. Well, let's call it a cooling off period. Oh, good job. That's great spin. And then there's like a joint, like, wow, big deal. Janice Jackson and Lori Lightfoot had a joint. Janice Jackson works for Lori Lightfoot, okay? It's not like they had to come to some kind of compromise on what they're going to say. It's like Dr. D and Ben came to a joint statement. We're together, like a team. Get one, you get the other. No, it was very important settlement between Lori Lightfoot and Janice Jackson. And then everybody, I could just see Northsiders. Wow, Lori Lightfoot's getting along with Janice Jackson. How come she can't get along? How come the teachers union can't get along with them? Come on, guys. I live in the north side of Chicago. Come on, guys. You're being just like those policemen. I think, you know what, D? Let's give A to Lori Lightfoot for brilliant political maneuvering over the last 2 days. I just thought about that. The cooling off period, which happens to coincide with the blizzard, in which nobody would go to school anyway. No one said they were dumb. No one said they were dumb, D. Especially on this show.
Today, the mayor was at a virtual 10 a.m. press conference with Chicago Sky owners and officials to welcome two-time WNBA MVP and local legend Candace Parker to the team. Hey, that's pretty cool, huh, Ben?
Yes. Very happy that Candace Parker has come home of sorts. She's from Naperville, but that's close enough, right, D? And so welcome back, Cotter, to the Chicago Sky. And by the way, how about those Bulls? Victorious last night, huh, D?
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to mention it, but since you raised the subject of basketball, Zach LaVine for 3. Yes! I know Lori Lightfoot was happy with it. No, Lori Lightfoot's more of a football fan. But anyway, brilliant move. Go hang out with Candace Parker and, take everybody's mind off this confrontation with the Chicago teachers. So more good. I tell you, they're on a roll over at City Hall. They got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah. Candace, stand right here and say, hey, teachers, get back in those classrooms. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, Candace is like, no, I'm staying out of that one. I just want a happy story about a great basketball player coming back to Chicago.
All right, guys, so that's our local news today. Remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, and so much more at chicagoreader.com and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. You can always reach us online at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, and you can call the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. 708-658-4788. The number again, 708-658-4788.
Gets me every time. Number again.
Okay, I'm reading the number. 708-658. It's called Call to Action. 708-658-4788. Call the Ben Joravsky Show, and we would love to hear from you.
Mayor Lightfoot, Al Sharpton.
Okay, not now, Sharpton.
Good question, Sharp. She should have done like she did with, it was Hillary. Good question, Al Sharpton. Good question. It is a great question. I think Al Sharpton should take the roll up. I'll be the intermediary. I'll broker peace. That's the old days. Jesse Jackson used to play that role. The great Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson every now and then will come in and broker peace between two warring factions. We could use some help from someone. Reverend Sharpton, I welcome your presence in the city of Chicago.
All right, and before we go to break, actually, the live stream chat has been on fire today. Well, first off, thanks to Frank, we now know Al Sharpton, he has a show on MSNBC. Boy, we are not with it.
Yeah, no, I knew that. Even I knew that.
Really?
Yeah, I just didn't know why he was in the middle of the Morning Joe show. No, I knew that. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense why he was there. He works for the company,
that.
so.
We have many guests, Dee, who love MSNBC. So I try not to say anything disparaging about MSNBC. We have a regular Wednesday guest who I believe has MSNBC plugged into his earlobes. Monroe loves MSNBC. So.
Also on the live stream chat, our good friend Michael Girardi, he weighed in. Michael Girardi, he has a little plan here. He wants to start a petition. He says, hey, if city council meetings are still virtual, it's time to reopen our city council.
Yes.
No reason we cannot do it safely, right?
Hear, 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 hear. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. It's an inconsistency. It's a mixed message. We're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, but everything's safe. Trust the science. Everybody's like, trust the science.
And finally, shout out to Jay Marie, who, boy, just can't wait until you stop talking about dead mice on the program.
Is she eating another sandwich? Remember last week? She was about to take a big
She said
bite
she
of a
wasn't.
sandwich.
She said she wasn't, but she's just not a fan of mice, I guess. She also says here on the live stream chat, she says that the city needs. Hold on a second here. Where did it go? She was talking about the mayoral race here. Well, first off, she says you need to watch the show Lovecraft Country.
Oh, yes. I am definitely, thank you. That's on HBO. Since I got HBO Max, I will be watching that show. Absolutely. That was one of the shows I couldn't watch because I didn't have HBO. So I will definitely be watching that.
And Jay Marie says CTU needs to be working now for a good candidate to run for mayor in 2023, someone better than Tony Preckwinkle.
Yes, I think we can all agree that Tony Preckwinkle's mayoral campaign was an utter disaster. And I got a feeling, to quote John Lennon, or is that Paul McCartney, that there will be a candidate running against Lori Lightfoot from the left. Maybe it'll be Reverend Al Sharpton. Who knows?
All right, everybody, don't go anywhere, because when we come back, Miles Kampf Lassin returns to the Ben Joravsky Show. We are live from my apartment in his attic. Don't go anywhere.
Now, look, I get it. Teachers are concerned. They're scared, which is absolutely why we've been working literally night and day for the last 2 weeks in particular, 70-plus meetings since June.
Right now,
Mayor Lightfoot, Al Sharpton. Mayor Lightfoot, Al Sharpton.
All right, everybody, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, February 2nd is brought to you by SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana, the Chicago Federation of Labor, and the Chicago Reader. Vinny J, take it away.
Miles Kampf Lassin joining us from In These Times, Jacobin Magazine. Welcome back to the show, Miles.
Thank you. Very glad to be here, and happy Groundhog Day to both of you. I, hope you both are celebrating and have your inner Ned Ryerson come out. Shout out.
Very good. Yes.
The great Bill Murray film.
I saw that movie. I know we don't want to get on tangent about it. Not a huge fan of that movie. I saw it again, and I know it's like making an acknowledgement, Miles, that people are like, what? You don't like Groundhog? Did you ever see the Groundhog Day? What's it called? Oh God, about the stalker. They redid Groundhog Day with a serial killer. Did you ever see that one? No. That was pretty good. Anyway, let's move on from Groundhog Day. Miles, Kampf Lassin has been very busy writing for not only in these times, but all kinds of publications. Where's Miles? This is one I'm trying to see where was this published. If Biden and the Democrats actually want to get anything done, they need to transform democracy. I agree with you 100%. I just don't know where the article ran. I don't think it's in these times.
It's a publication called Novara Media that is based in the UK. So it's, across the pond. So I tried to make sure my article was not stodgy at all, because I know the Brits do not like that. So they publish a lot of different left-leaning media critiques and political columns. So so that one was for Novara Media.
Well, before we get in, I want to get your thoughts on this. You mentioned something. I'm going to just throw something at you that we didn't even talk about before the show, but get your feelings on this. One thing that Mayor Lori Lightfoot did when she was on the which show was it? Morning Joe. She was on Morning Joe, and she was talking about the showdown with the teachers over whether they should reopen the schools. And she made a comment about how Chicago is a labor city, and she's a labor-friendly mayor, and that she gets along very well with every union in town except for two. The Fraternal Order Police, which is led by a right-winger, as I'm paraphrasing her, and that other union, which was a reference to the Chicago Teachers Union. As I was saying when on a riff, that this is part of a larger political strategy to sort of link the left, in this case the Chicago Teachers Union, with Trump. In other words, oh my God, this is what I got to deal with. I got these nutcases on the left and these nutcases on the right, and like everybody else is sort of in the middle. And I thought that was an effective I thought it was wildly inaccurate and not fair by any means to link these unions together. But I was thinking, it's a pretty effective strategy for your typical North Side, sure, liberal who's half paying attention. Yeah, both these unions are just so mean. Why can't they just get along with Lori? What's your thoughts about linking the Fraternal Order Police with the Chicago Teachers Union?
Well, it's extremely ugly and repugnant. I think that there's no doubt that there's a stark difference in terms of not only how these unions operate. I mean, obviously, if you listen to the language coming out of the FOP, it's grounded in this refusal to accept accountability and to defend at all levels their most awful members, of the force, the ones that are engaged in the type of brutality and abuse that understandably, the public is aligned against. There's no, question that people want to see reform in the department, and the FOP is an obstacle to that. Now, what the CTU is trying to do right now is make sure their members don't die by, having some protections in place in these schools, so that we're not sending people with, that have immunocompromised family members or people in their social circles that are going to face consequences, negative health consequences because of the ongoing pandemic. That's extremely different from, protecting members who engage in brutality to try to make sure that teachers who are overwhelmingly, working class, Black and brown Chicagoans don't die because of a pandemic. I mean, the idea that you can try to link these two unions together, it's just sad. I mean, it just goes to show that there's this concept of like horseshoe theory, right? That if you go to the extremes, you're bound to be linked up with the other end one way or the other. So, you go too far left, you go too far right. And that might be, you're right, a helpful rhetorical tool in order to say, hey, I'm just being the moderate here. I'm trying to, put myself in the middle, which honestly, I mean, you're right. That might be a good political stance to take. And I would argue that that's why we should have a strong left flank in order to be pushing people more, from their left so that they can stay, claim some moderation by being in the middle. That said, when it comes to, linking the FOP and CTU, I think pretty much every Chicagoan you talk to is going to know that's a load of BS and is not going to buy it.
I'm not quite sure that last comment is true, but we'll move on from that. That'll be an ongoing debate, Miles, between you and me. Pretty much every Chicagoan would know. I'm not quite sure that I agree with you on that point. You have obviously a much greater confidence in most Chicagoans than I do, and we'll leave it at that. And I will not shame any voters. That's part of my
20,000. Yes. 2021.
I will not. I made when Mindy was on the show. Mindy Eiser, I said I am not going to shame voters. I've already broken that resolution so many times and so many. I've been shaming. Oh my goodness! I shame Northwest Siders for voting against the fair tax. I shame North Siders for believing whatever they read in the Tribune or here on BEZ. I shame Bernie voters in Michigan. So I'm just. And then I shame myself, Miles, for some of the incredibly stupid votes I've made over the years.
Wow.
Yes, I got some issues with shaming. If Biden and the Democrats actually want to get anything done, they need to transform democracy. And your essay, which I urge everybody to check out, kind of runs counter to the conventional thinking, which is the conventional thinking. If you want to get something done, you move to the middle and cut a deal. Explain your position here, Miles.
Well, I think the past, 3 decades in American politics throws that concept out the window. The one you just mentioned, that bipartisanship is the pathway towards, accomplishing goals. Because let's be honest, there's one of the 2 major political parties in this country that is aligned against not only the Democratic agenda, but the entire concept of free and fair elections. They have staked their political future on suppressing the vote, intimidating voters, trying to create, structures within the U.S. political system that exist that are now being abetted by the Republican Party that seek to disenfranchise voters and to, give corporate actors much more power and much more say. Just look at the disastrous 2010 Citizens United decision pushed through by, right-leaning Supreme Court that basically said that money is speech, and so therefore corporate actors can do whatever they want to influence the political system. And it's created our current conundrum where there's just overwhelming corporate cash flowing around and dark money in these election cycles. But there's also structural issues. Look at the Senate. There was just a report done that I referenced in that article that there's a 50-50 split, right, in the Senate right now. But the Democrats have the upper hand because the president of the Senate is Kamala Harris right now, is a Democrat's going to vote with them, but it's 50-50. That said, the Democrats represent literally 40 million more people, over 40 million more people than the Republicans. But because of the undemocratic nature of the Senate, the fact that, Wyoming has the same number of representatives as California, then it just empowers the right in this country. And that is not democracy. We're based on the idea of one person, one vote, that we should have our government reflect the will of the people. And yet, all the forces in our democratic system are aligned against that and undermine the ability of the majority to actually accomplish their goals. And the reason I wrote this piece is not only about, I believe in the integrity of democracy, obviously, and I think the U.S. should live up to its ideals of being a country based on free and fair elections and a representative popular government, but it's also in the short-term political interests of the Democrats to do this and that includes, what I talk about in the pieces, both doing this massive bill that they've already put forward, the For the People Act, that would do a number of the things I talked about. But they also need to change the rules of the Senate so that one Republican can't block the entire Democratic agenda, which is what exists right now with the filibuster. You can have the minority party just stand up and say, hey, we're not going to do this. And Mitch McConnell has already said his plan is obstruction. He doesn't have any intention to work with the Biden administration or congressional Democrats on enacting their agenda because he's wholly opposed to it, and their party is still in thrall to Donald Trump, a maniac who still is selling this pernicious lie that the election was stolen from him. So I think that this is the time for Democrats to just forget about these, lofty goals of bipartisanship, which they've been raving about for many years now, but have resulted in their political fortunes being, in the toilet, And instead, because I mean, just look under Obama. I've said this before, but under Obama, the Democrats lost over 1,000 seats in state houses across the country. Of course, in 2010, the Tea Party rose to power. It was a disaster for Democrats. You can't have that again in 2022. The problems are too big. We have the existential threat of climate change. We have this god-awful pandemic, and so many other challenges and crises raining down on the American people. The Democrats need to consolidate their power. And they can do that by doing things like getting rid of the filibuster and then giving statehood to Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, which would increase their representation in Congress. And it would be democratic because these people live under U.S. laws, the residents of D.C. and Puerto Rico, but they have no representation in Congress. The American Revolution is all about we got to have representation. No taxation without representation. Well, these people should be represented. And it would also help Democrats electorally. So I think that it's now is a critical time because there's no time to waste, for one, but also they need to do this fast so that they can start acting on other aspects of their agenda.
And so what's your thoughts of how Joe Biden is rolling out his stimulus agenda right now? Do you think he's following your advice, or is he following the Obama plan?
I was really, there's a number of things to read into what has happened so far as to, extrapolate from. I don't know exactly what his personal views are, but I will say I think the Democratic conventional wisdom has shifted from 2009 in order, and that Democrats realize, or at least, many people within the Democratic Party realize that there's huge peril to acting too slowly and not largely enough, basically, and just waiting for Republicans to come on board. I mean, that's what they did with the stimulus. You remember in 2009, Rahm Emanuel said that we can't go over $700 trillion because it'll be politically unfeasible. He used a bunch of expletives about it, and Obama was meeting with Susan Collins and all these Republicans trying to get their support. And we waited a long time to actually get it done. And then it was way too small and, did not. And also they didn't take credit for it. Like, Democrats didn't say, hey, we got you these tax rebates. They just kind of tried to quietly do it. So I think that there was a lot of lessons learned from that. And Joe Biden was in the Senate then, he was vice president with Obama, but before that he was in the Senate throughout all these various cycles of the praising of bipartisanship and having it do poorly for Democrats. What I will say is Ron Klain, who's the new chief of staff, he's in the role Rahm Emanuel was before. He just tweeted out today a poll that showed overwhelming public support for the stimulus plan, the $1.9 trillion package that Biden has proposed. And it has overwhelming support from both Democrats and Republicans. And he said, now this is what bipartisanship looks like. I think that's a much better, view of how to seek bipartisanship rather than negotiating with Mitt Romney and Susan Collins and whoever else you think might come over, when we know that ultimately I can almost guarantee no Republicans are going to vote for this bill, because look, they put forward a $600 billion bill that's less than a third of what Biden proposed, and it's not like it has new ideas in it that they could incorporate. It's just everything the Democrats proposed, but way less, right? It's just like, it's not even a real negotiation. It's just saying, let's actually just do less for people. Let's not give them $1,400. We'll give them $1,000. Let's not do any state and local aid. Let's not do any rent relief. This is what the Republicans are proposing. So we shouldn't expect that they're going to see the light and get on board and support Biden, because these are the most moderate Republicans, right, that are putting forward that. So when it comes to trying to bring over your, Marjorie Taylor Greens or something, forget about it. I think that Democrats are better off just sticking with trying to go it alone through reconciliation, and it looks like that's the direction they're going.
Yeah. By the way, I gotta get your thoughts on the ever-shifting stimulus check. Yeah. And this baffles me, because one thing I could say about Donald Trump, he understood the political benefit of literally mailing a check to someone and signing the check. He made sure everybody called him Trump checks. He really had nothing to do with the hard work of sticking your neck out to negotiate that a check, but he sure took credit for it. And in the middle of that gap, Miles, between the election in November and the insurrection and inauguration of January, Trump momentarily came up with the notion of, remember, what was it? He was going to increase to $1,000. I think it was. I'm losing track of all the different numbers. The check that would go out to Americans, and it died in the Senate. And he didn't care because he didn't push for it. I mean, he was only thinking about himself. But I've watched this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Joe Biden went down to Georgia and said $2,000. And then all of a sudden, it came out to $1,400 plus the $600 that will equal $2,000. And now they're talking about $1,000. So it's not even going to be $2,000. I mean, why not just stick with I said I'm getting you $2,000 and I'm getting you $2,000, and those darn Republicans won't let me give you $2,000. I don't get it, Miles. Help explain to me why Joe Biden would retreat from something that would be seen as, so who's we against getting $2,000? Go ahead, Miles. Explain this to me.
I mean, you're right on. I don't think that there's anybody that's against getting $2K. I think the bigger issue is this question of how targeted it should be, right? And that's partially being debated. But you're right, it's absurd. I mean, you go down and you promise people $2,000 checks, just send them $2,000 checks. It's not that much more, it's $600 more. Of course, in the scheme of things, that's going to raise the price tag of the stimulus bill way over $1.9 trillion if they did that. But I think the political benefits would outweigh that by people being like, oh, hey, they told us they were going to do this, and then they actually did it. That said, 1,400 is a lot better than 1,000, which is what the Republicans are proposing. I don't think that the Democrats need to even be negotiating on that question. I think it's much more important. Here's what I'll say. I think Donald Trump would have fared much more poorly in the 2020 election if those checks hadn't gone out, including the $600 checks, but certainly the $1,200 checks before, because it just, not only did it have his name on it, but people got money from the government when, a certain administration was in charge and a certain party was in charge. I think that certainly helped Republicans down ticket, in these Senate races across the board. And I think Democrats have a lot to learn from that. And I think that they're taking a right lesson, and at least they are including, some checks. I think it would be much smarter for them to go up to 2,000, as you say. But you're right, in terms of their logic and explaining it was, it's 1,400 plus the 600. That's how we get to 2,000. I think once you start asking voters to do math in order to, justify their policy making, that you start to lose them a little bit. But I just want to make one point, which is that is a critical part of the bill, of course, is getting direct payments. That's what people need. But there's other stuff in this bill that will go so much farther in terms of changing, both reducing inequality in this country and improving people's material lives, because there's the child tax benefit credit, which would, radically reduce child poverty and also start to close the racial wealth gap in this country, which has been gaping for many years. And there's, massive enhancements to unemployment insurance. The new bill that they just put the budget resolution for includes aid to independent restaurants. Finally, we got the Save Our Stages money in the last bill, but it didn't really bail out independent restaurants. This bill would start to do that, and it's a pool that they could come back and add to, like they did with the PPP money. So I will just say that there's tons of stuff in that bill besides the checks that will make a big difference.
Absolutely. The checks is just the most symbolic part about it, is a direct impact and so obvious. And that was Trump's, one of his great selling tactics. He made sure everybody knew that he was responsible. And listening to you, Miles, it's so funny. It worked for Republicans down ballot, and yet they resisted it.
But it happened, so they got the political benefit.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I find the Republican Party a baffling party. Their logic is so inconsistent. For instance, at one point, when they were struggling to emerge with an identity in the aftermath of the insurrection, when Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio were trying to figure out how to position the Republican Party to sort of draw attention away from the insurrection without alienating MAGA's base, okay? They came up with, we're the party for the working class. I don't know if you saw this, but we're the party for the working class. I'm like, every single initiative that would actually put money in the pockets of someone who's not rich, be it middle class, working class, whatever you want to call it, they're against. And yet they want to be known as the party of the working class. I find it baffling that it works, and I'm straying towards shaming voters, so I'm going to move back from that position. Okay, just stay. But I find it really baffling that it works, Miles, and that they have an ideology that Democrats somehow or other seem to be so incapable of fighting. Talk about this a little bit.
Well, I think that it's just Democrats need to call it out as just, absurd. There's nothing to the Republican Party that they're a party of capital, right? They represent the interests of corporate America, of big business, of their donors, and a conservative ideology, which is all about restricting the role of government. And so trying to have government less in people's lives, at least that's the, Republican mantra as it has been stated over the past since Ronald Reagan, since the 80s. There has been some effort, you're right, by some people like Marco Rubio and Josh Hawley to do a rhetorical reframing of the party and try to say that they're actually representing working people, but they focus on cultural issues, right? On things like we're the anti-woke party or something, and we're gonna push back against the infringement and the political cancellation culture that's out there. That's their way of supposedly representing working people. But these are, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, these are as elite as you can get. These are people that went to Yale and Princeton Law and, got jobs in Wall Street and made, millions of dollars off of it. They are not, people who have committed their lives to supporting workers. And just look at one issue I always point to is just look, how do people feel about, the union rights in this country? Union rights, if we changed the makeup of union membership in this country, we could radically realign the power structure in American society to give working people more power, more say over their jobs, over their livelihoods, over their pay. And Republican Party is dead set on preventing mass unionization in this country. If you want to look at where, people that are fighting for working class power, look at, the Black female warehouse workers at Amazon in Alabama that are now fighting for a union election among their workforce, which could, transform how Amazon operates. Where are the Republicans on that? If you want to support working people, you've got to support collective worker action and collective worker organizing, which happens in unions. And there's no question in my mind the Republican Party is not going to realign to support union rights. Lord knows they're not doing it right now.
Absolutely. And that's a contradiction that I hope people in unions appreciate when they go to vote. All right. You mentioned capital. Let's get to the market fluctuations of last week. You talked a lot about it on the show. I know you play the markets. You probably made a fortune on GameStop. You and Dennis were on Reddit together, communicating back and forth. I'm just teasing. I'm not even sure that Miles even trades. Great column in these times, which I think you said you helped edit, by Doug Henwood. I urge everybody to read it, talking about the contradictions embedded on what went down last week. Talk a little bit what Henwood had to say and your larger thoughts on all these people throwing their money, buying stock, battling hedge funds, and we don't somehow. This is my pet peeve, Miles. The larger public doesn't really benefit from this because we don't have a transaction tax that would just collect fees. Let them freaking throw their money down a rabbit hole. I don't care. It's like going to the racetrack. but because we don't have a tax on it, it's just like all we do is get the raw end of the stick when like the economy is damaged by their trading. Talk a little bit about it, Miles.
Yeah, well, the impulse behind the GameStop frenzy, I think, was legitimate and based in righteous anger towards Wall Street and the capitalist class, and specifically hedge funds that have been profiting off of short selling, which is, not to get into the weeds, but basically, you can bet against a company doing well. And when you do that, you can make a lot of money, but you also stand to lose a lot more money than if you just bet on a company doing well in the market. And that's what these hedge funds did around GameStop, specifically Melvin Capital. They ended up losing tons of money over this this whole series of events. They're now they're still standing, partially because they were backed up by Citadel, which we know is backed by our boy Ken Griffin, richest man in Illinois. So and Citadel certainly made money off of this whole thing too, which is the rub is that you can't beat Wall Street by playing its own game, and that's the fundamental issue here, which is that I don't think there's anything wrong with I think there should be more, Reddit threads of Wall Street bets and, getting together to support industries, specifically ones that are not doing well. I mean, the idea even behind supporting GameStop and AMC was like these businesses are brick and mortar shops that are suffering because of COVID, and Wall Street vultures are trying to profit off of their failure right now. We should, fight back against them as some kind of a David and Goliath kind of situation. But in effect, look what happened. Robinhood, this company that supposedly is about fulfilling the name of the company and giving from the rich to the poor, they made $1 billion off of Wall Street, and they stopped allowing people to even trade on these stocks. And now the GameStop stock is cratered. And so a lot of people, including Redditors, people that don't have much money, that actually bet with their own money, which, let's just be clear, that's not what happens. Are betting other people's money. They are not, their stake is not in the game. And they're doing this high frequency trading, which is what they said that was bad about what the Redditors were doing. They said there's too much trading going on here, right? It's like, that's the whole model of Wall Street. It just goes to show the entire structure of the stock market. It's a hall of mirrors. It's absurd. And it is not about, it's certainly no reflection of the actual economy, but it's just a way for rich people to get richer. It's not, there's no way in which you can kind of get one over on these guys, because they have access to all these financial instruments that will allow them to win. The way to beat them at their game, I think, is what you just said, a financial transaction tax. That would go a long way towards reining in the type of insane market activity that's going on. But there's other things too. You could institute, wealth tax. You could have a public market rather than just private stock markets. Plenty of, places have public markets where goods are traded, where it's actually regulated. You could also, break up some of these big financial institutions that hold monopolies over their industries. And you can also support unionization efforts so that, as I said, workers can gain more power and actually have more say in these companies. I think those are probably more effective tools at the hands of, people that want to fight against the abuses of Wall Street. But in the short term, I mean, I say more power to people that are trying to, stop these hedge funds. Whatever tool you can use is going to be a positive one, but don't get played, while you're at it. And I fear that that's probably what.
Yeah. Kenny G's, he's got more protection than, some Joe Sixpack playing on Robinhood. Just telling you right, Ken Griffin. And I don't know. You know what, Miles, I have to tell you that the sobbing and weeping coming from the privileged class of hedge fund wheeler and dealers over how the Reddit group drove up the price of GameStop and thus made them vulnerable with their options to buy at a lower price. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's just like Republicans, man. They're always crying. I've never seen a group of just always playing that victim card, and their contorted defenses of their system, their attempt to like justify their existence by saying, you don't understand, we're we're like referees in the economy, and we're judges that but even things, I mean, they just make stuff up, Miles, to justify their existence as gazillionaires taking advantage of all the rest of us. Go ahead.
Well, and you're right on that point, and it's also, there's no difference. It's not like these people are, they have financial expertise perhaps, but that just means they're good at playing this same game that they're mad that other people are now accessing through being able to trade on the markets. The only difference is they're just wearing different clothes. Some people are, on Reddit in their, in their living room, and these guys are wearing suits, on some trading floor somewhere, probably actually just virtually right now anyway. So there really is not much difference. And the other absurdity of this whole thing, people are up in arms because the stock was going up, right? It's like, isn't the idea of the market that do better and that's good? It's like, no, they're all mad because that's not how it's supposed to go, because that's not where the money was flowing. It's like, it just goes to show how this whole thing is a house of cards anyway, and that what we should really be doing is some type of financial regulation and oversight.
Well, if you want to hear some serious sobbing, I urge you, go write a story from these times calling for a financial transaction tax. You will. I every now and then, for the reader, I get bored. Oh, let me write another. I knew it's not going to happen because the powers that be in the financial world of Chicago control the legislature, and they could. Oh my goodness, Rahm met with Madigan and Collarson. I'm getting on my high horse here, Miles. Way back when, in the early days, to come up with some kind of to support legislation that would be a tax break for the major exchanges in Chicago. At about the same time, he was closing the clinics. It blew my mind. I wrote column after column about it in the Reader, just the symbolism of it. And but it's like Springfield's a captive audience. And they buy into this notion that somehow or other it will destroy Chicago's economy if these big exchanges were to leave Chicago, which they always threaten to do. If you put that tax on, we're leaving right now. We're going to Gary, Indiana. And I've heard this for so many years, Miles, and I'm almost like, I don't know what we lose if you do go to Gary, Indiana. Yeah. I don't know what the freaking you bring to the city of Chicago. You're bragging about how you're becoming more and more computerized, so you get to cut your workforce. So what do normal, ordinary human beings get out of you being in the city of Chicago? Please explain to me that, other than the right to tax your exchanges. And I get these letters. Ben, you don't understand, man. We're really important to the economy, and it would hurt small traders. Like any one of these guys cares about small traders, Miles. So I urge you to go write a story about a financial transaction tax so you can experience firsthand the sobbing you're going to get from these gazillionaires.
Well, and can I just say, there's, the CME Group is like one thing, but there's the Chicago Stock Exchange. What are they're going to move to Gary? And what are they going to do to Gary Stock Exchange now? I think that these fears it's just what capital flight is always what defenders of, the interests of big business will throw out and threaten as a reason you shouldn't actually change any of the status quo, which is all about having money flow to the richest people in the city and the state and prioritize them. There's something you said earlier in the show too about how no matter what, the cities and the states, corporate class is aligned against the Chicago Teachers Union. And I think that that's extremely true. I think it's also why the structure of our politics is what it is, because they have such outweighed influence and power over our legislature right now. And the only way to break that is to, take some power away. And that's what a financial transaction tax would begin to do, to provide some level of, equality across the city and state by funneling some of that money from these trades. It's like a penny on the trade. It's not like these people are going to be out of work or going broke, but then that money could be put into social services where we know it's direly needed. Look at the food bank lines. I mean, come on.
Yes. Well, you're definitely preaching to the choir on that one. And we'll move on from that, and we'll close with impeachment. I've supported the first impeachment. I don't want to mix you up with Micah. I don't want to put Micah's views in your mouth. Micah, a frequent guest on the show as well. But I can't recall, were you a big supporter of the first round of impeachment? Either way, what's your thoughts about pressing on with impeachment of Donald Trump? Go ahead.
Yeah, you got to get this. There's got to be some accountability, and this guy can't just, run the Republican Party for the foreseeable future, which is what's going to I mean, it's not like impeachment will completely solve that issue. There's extreme fealty to Donald Trump across the Republican caucus and certainly among the voting, their voting base. And that's going to be an issue that Republicans are going to have to grapple with going forward. But as long as he is able to run for office in 4 years, that's going to dominate, Republican Party politics and just be a cloud over what allows them to do. And it's going to lift up people like, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene that are, a real danger to not just like American democracy, but to actual members of Congress. People like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who you mentioned earlier about her plight during the storming of the Capitol. So, I mean, I think on that basis alone, you've got to impeach this guy just so that you can foreclose on the possibility of him running for federal office again. That said, I don't think it's going to happen now. I mean, I think there was a brief window, right, where people were freaked the hell out and they were like, what are we going to do? McConnell was like, I'm open to hearing their legal arguments and stuff. But now they all but 5 of them voted and to say you can't even impeach a president once he's out of office. So I don't have high hopes that 17 Republicans are suddenly in the Senate are suddenly going to see the light. But look, Trump's he can't even get a legal team together. Now the lawyer he's going to have is Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, and all of these QAnon people were going off on, Trump's going to get the pedophiles, and, Epstein is friends with Hillary and stuff. His lawyer is now representing Trump. Look, the cognitive dissonance can only go so far. There's got to be some point in which the fever breaks. So hopefully that will be some outcome from all of this mess.
I don't know if the fever will break, but I wholeheartedly support impeachment. I supported the last one. I just want to give a shout out. We have Jimmy Coogan will be coming on next week, Ace Attorney. We're going to be breaking down impeachment. He's been obsessively following these things for a while. And Miles, you know me, I love getting as much information out as possible. And one thing I'm hoping is when the case against Donald Trump is put out, we'll get more information as to who knew what and when in regards to the insurrectionists and their contacts, perhaps, with the Trump people. Just like all the information got out pretty much about Donald Trump and his phone call, the Ukrainian president. We still don't know the full extent, I think, of Donald Trump's connections with the Putin regime back in 2016. I don't know if we ever will, but I think the more info out, the better. So that's why I'm for impeachment. And finally, before you go, you wrote a very good piece. I think it was for Jacobin. Got to give you a shout out about the different memes, the contrasting memes that were going on with the 2016 inauguration and 2020. Of course, the prevailing meme in 2020 was Bernie and his mittens. In 2016, I completely forgot this. What was he? The white supremacist, or Richard Spencer, got hit in the head by I don't know who hit him. I don't know if we ever found out who hit him. And that was going around back in 2016. And Bernie his mittens. And then I sent you that essay. Man, poor Bernie. And I know you share my love for Bernie. This is a guy who has been so consistent in his values about smashing inequity and trying to be fair about how we distribute money in the U.S. of A. And he is just people are always mad at Bernie. I sent you that essay from some professor out in San Francisco who said it's white privilege because Bernie dresses like an ordinary human being. You know what I'm saying? He's not Justin Timberlake. I don't know. Poor Bernie. Bernie can't win, huh, Miles?
Well, the rule, I think the running rule of take, of opinions, especially in our modern society, is if a take can be had, somebody will have it, and so if it's Bernie's being, showing off his privilege by wearing mittens that were given to him by, a school teacher in Vermont and a snowboard jacket that was given to him by his son, then somebody's going to say that's privilege on display. I mean, I don't think the only shockingness that it is that it took so long for somebody to have such a contrarian, opinion on the whole thing. But I think that probably is not very representative of how most people viewed the meme. But yeah, to the point of the story, I mean, my goal was just to try to tell the story of American politics from 2017 to 2021 through two very different memes, right? And it's important because this is how, it's culture. This is how we are, we interact with politics and doing it through the digital realm, through the internet. It comes in the form of memes. And in 2016, I bet a lot of your, or early 2017, I bet a lot of your listeners saw a meme of Richard Spencer, a avowed white supremacist, white nationalist, getting punched in the face. And and the reason I think it was so, it went so viral was because this guy had been all about talking about how white male chauvinism is the source of power in our society. And we need to, embrace that power and try to make sure we protect it by stopping it from being diluted by multiculturalism in the United States, right? It's racism. It's just like Third Reich inspired, pure straight racism. And so when he got punched in the face, he was not very powerful. He was humiliated in public, in front of, the world. And so people just wanted to share that, to dunk on him collectively. And it worked. I mean, Richard Spencer's career cratered. He no longer had the same audience or following, certainly after Charlottesville. And I think he's just given up. He even told people to vote for Biden, I think, before the 2020 election. So Lord knows what happened to Richard Spencer, but I think the meme did help to destroy his career. Flash forward to 2021, and we've got Bernie, who's about to become the head of the budget committee, sitting there in his mittens, just ready to get to work, saying, okay, get on with Lady Gaga and the big, bird on your chest, and I'm going to go take on the billionaires and do some budget reconciliation so we can get people checks and unemployment insurance. So I think that's just, goes to show how far the political context has shifted. And to me, it should give it, a more optimistic take on the future of American politics.
Well done. That's a good place as any to end it for today. Miles, thank you so much. And Miles Kampf Lassin from In These Times and Jacobin comes on the show, all the time. And of course, Dennis, I have to mention this, a proud graduate of Whitney Young High School.
Go Dolphins. And I'm glad you gave a shout out to Candace Parker, hometown hero, coming back to the sky.
Yes.
Super hype about that. Love to see when, the Chicagoans come home. And we got to say, Bulls, not only did the Bulls beat the Knicks last night, but it was Thibodeau, the former coach coming into the building. Knicks have been playing really well, but Zach LaVine and Thad Young and Kobe White came out.
Kobe White hit that three, baby. Boom, from the corner. Whoops, I'm all excited about it. Yeah, we're not going to discuss what happened Saturday. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'll just say this. Thank you, Denzel, because as soon as that travesty of that game with Damian Lillard, and I'm not going to talk about what would happen, my beloved Bulls broke my heart, I immediately put on Denzel and I immersed myself in the world of Denzel Washington and helped me get through. I don't know why I love the Bulls the way I do, but I love them. All right, Miles, stay safe and sound. We'll talk to you real soon, all right?
Sounds good. Thank you both.
All right, that's the great Miles Kampf Lassin from In These Times and Jacobin. And it was a heck of a story he wrote. I thought it was a really good piece he wrote, as he just said, contrasting Richard Spencer, the meme from 2017, not 2016, and the Bernie and his mittens meme from 2021. All right, D, any updates before we head out the door?
Yeah, we got some updates. But did I hear that right? WNBA star Candace Parker went to Whitney Young?
No. She went to, she's from Naperville. She's not from Chicago. She's from Naperville. I forget which high school in Naperville she went to. Miles went to Whitney Young. Miles Kampf Lassin went to Whitney Young.
Go Dolphins. All right, let's do the back half. First off, some statewide news. No public events scheduled for our Democratic Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker. No Tuesday COVID-19 update, but according to state officials, vaccinations will be ramping up again soon. Oh, and some news that happened while we were away, Ben. And for those who are still keeping track at home, yes, all three of you, Chicago has returned to phase 4 of Governor Pritzker's 5-phase strategy to safely reopen Illinois.
Let's begin with phase 1.
Yes, his Restore Illinois plan. But stricter limits on indoor dining remain. Anywhere you go, you'll still need a mask and generally be required to stay 6 feet apart. But under phase 4, you will be able to go out to dinner and a movie. However, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said stricter capacity limits will remain in place for bars and restaurants for now.
Okay, but not schools. Hey, are you allowed to drink in the schools? Just ask it. The bars are slowing down. Okay, can't open them up too fast, but it's perfectly safe. The science tells us it's safe to open the schools. Let's open the schools. That's why I say it's a mixed message. Ken Davis, I know you're out there listening. By the way, I got to say this, D. I mentioned this to you earlier, and this is a confession, and I just got to be honest about my limitations in life. I suffer from dyslexia, and I have issues. I'm constantly reversing things, and if you ask me at any given point in the day, is phase 4 the most liberal open, or is phase 1 the most liberal open? I could not tell you because I reverse everything. It just seems to me it should be like phase 1 should be like the top of the charts because like 1 is like it seems like the number 1 song in America right now is Sugar Sugar by the Archies. It just seems like, the way to go. But no, it's the other way. So I'm all mixed up. And whenever you do that thing, and he goes, let's start with phase 1. It just always makes me laugh. And then realize, how did I get this far in life with all the handicaps in my mind, dude?
All right. Well, J.B. Pritzker, anything you'd like to say here?
Face coverings.
Okay, I knew you. And hey, since we're discussing statewide news, our host, Ben Joravsky, just dropped a Chicago Reader column. It's all about soon-to-be former Senator Heather Staines and the Illinois Senate shuffle currently happening right now. Ben, tell everybody about that.
Well, Dennis, I have a confession to make. Yeah, I have a confession to make. I sat down ready to write a column where I was going to chastise Kelly Cassidy, State Rep Kelly Cassidy. Eventually, I presume she'll be elevated to State Senator Kelly Cassidy.
What?
What's that?
I was going to say, but that's not. I feel like there's a but coming here.
Yeah, there's a but coming. I was about ready to chastise her. This is not democracy. This is taking advantage of our system where Heather Staines stepped down after just getting reelected. And all of a sudden there's a vacancy. So the Democratic committeemen, one of whom is Kelly Cassidy, have to convene and replace her. So she's going to get to vote and replace herself. And I was ready to chastise her and I couldn't do it. It's a confession. And I admit, here's the confession part. I admit I have favorites. Yes, I am confessing. I have favorites. Kelly Cassidy is one of my favorites. She's funny, D. She's got a good sense of humor. Plus, she's just like a lefty. She's not afraid of it. She just puts her politics out there.
And if there's any guest that's going to send us weed brownies, it's her, right?
Kelly KC.
So we got to be nice to her.
Yeah. So I started, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And so I wrote a column in which I just said, I know I'm supposed to be outraged by this, but can't work up any sense of outrage. So part of it is that I do have favorites in politics. Yeah, everybody knows my favorites are. They come on the show all the time, right?
Yeah.
People take a stand. People who are generally left of center, you know. I remember when Kelly Cassidy first became a state rep. By the way, she became a state. So I spent a good chunk of the weekend, doing a deep dive on all the people who originally got their jobs through appointments, got their political office, and many of them are friends of people like Robert Peters. You know, State Senator Robert Peters, good friend of this show. You know, Rob Markwick remember he got elevated from state rep to state senator because John Morrow, I think it was, stepped down to become a judge. Lindsay LaPointe. You know, state representative for the Northwest. So, you know, I mean, this is the process that exists in the state of Illinois, and sometimes it leads to people whose politics I agree with getting elevated, and sometimes it leads to people whose politics I don't agree with getting elevated. I'm wondering, is there a better way to do this? You know, should we just have special elections every time there's a vacancy? And I'm not quite sure. One of the people I talked to when I did the story is Jacob Kaplan, executive director of the Cook County Democratic Party. We're going to bring Jacob on and have a wider discussion of this. Dan, I don't know if that's practical in every circumstances. Do you realize that Kelly Cassidy will have to run for re-election if she gets selected by, and I presume she will, the committeeman for whose areas cover that's the 7th senatorial district. If she's selected as them to fill this vacancy, she's got to run for re-election next February or March of 2022, whenever the primary is. So petitions will be passed in September. So I don't know, have a special election in September to have another election, have a special election in March, have another special election a year later. I don't know, does that make sense? And then I started doing a deep dive, and I realized that not everyone who is anointed in this nomination process wins. So anyway, I ended up writing a column where I wasn't outraged. But I started off, I was determined to be outraged. And when the column was over, I wasn't outraged. And I think a good chunk of it, as I must confess, is I like Kelly Cassidy. I don't know. You know, D, have you ever had like a favorite? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you've never been a school teacher, but I don't know if you ever coached. And when you're coaching, you can't show who your favorite kid in the team is. But deep down inside, you're like it's a kid who's funny. And it may be like a kid who is not particularly good at the sport or not that respectful. Like I've coached so many kids, and some of these kids are hilarious. And I know I shouldn't be encouraging them and laughing at them when they do their funny things, but I can't help myself. So the other kids, I think they catch on that I have favorites. They try not to, be open about it. But Kelly Cassidy has been a good public servant. So she wants to be state senator, and she can win re-election. That's my Larry David. Let it go. So, yeah, I wrote a column. I set out to write a column of outrage, and I wrote a column where I wasn't outraged.
And guys, that's like a sneak peek. It's not out yet, all right? So that's a little, foreshadow there into the next column from Ben Joravsky. Go check it out when it becomes available, chicagoreader.com. Oh, and I'm on to you, Staines. What did you do? Why the big sudden change? Am I right, Ben?
Yeah, I think she said she wanted to spend more time with her family.
Oh, yeah, heard that one before.
Cullerton. Now, you remember John Cullerton. This is another one of the. John Cullerton was a senator. Said, I don't want to be senator anymore. So the committeemen in the area convened, and they moved Sarah Feigenholtz from state rep to state senate. And then they put Yoni Pizer in to replace her. And he didn't win re-election. Just saying. Margaret Crope defeated him. Remember we used to talk about that on the show, D? We had a couple times we talked about that. So it's not 100% guarantee that you're going to win re-election just because the Democratic committeemen appoint you. Just saying, D. Just throwing that out there. Okay.
All right. I have two more stories here. Let's just go ahead and knock these out here. Well, yeah, it's funny you say that. We have some breaking news. And boy, can we white people enjoy anything these days. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Fran the Woman Spielman. For the second straight year, Chicago will be forced to celebrate St. Patrick's Day without the back-to-back downtown and South Side Irish parades that have been the colorful holiday's most entrenched traditions. Damn it!
Well, I have another confession to make since I'm not a big fan of the St. Patrick's Day celebrations. A lot of drunken people. Kind of scares me. I remember I was visiting Karen Lewis. Went to visit Karen Lewis on St. Patrick's Day. This is obviously before the pandemic. She was living over on the north side in the Gold Coast area. Anyway, I went to visit her, D, and it was a Saturday. I got on the L. Oh my God, it was relatively early. There were so many drunken people on that train, and you're right, your basic point, drunken white people on just jam-packed in this train. And then, I'm like, oh, this is kind of scary. I'm just not feeling this vibe right here. All these drunken people. And and then you got out of the train. Where was I? I think on Chicago Avenue. And it just, sidewalks clogged with drunken people staggering around. So, yeah, D, I guess it's kind of in a weird way a benefit of the pandemic. But as soon as I said, I know there's so many people upset with me right now that I love St. Patrick's Day. I love getting drunk on St. Patrick's Day. Okay, all right. Whatever rings your bell. Yeah, it doesn't ring mine.
I've never been to the parade, but just the whole vibe of the city, everywhere you go, it's like, if you haven't been called a douchebag in a while, step outside on St. Patrick's Day in Chicago. 8 people will call you as soon as you step out.
Yeah, I know. And then there's like the people who are staggering, and you're like kind of like, I'm walking down the street. I really want to avoid a confrontation with a drunken, beefy guy, and he's just kind of staggering around. And so it's like, okay, I'll stop. I'll just stop walking until he's done staggering, and then I'll move into the spot he vacates. So I stop. He stops, I move, and then like his partner, his friend comes staggering out. It's like, oh my God, it's like skiing when you're going down slaloming, or what is it called? Slaloming, is that what it's called? Where you go through the, that's what it's like when you're walking down the sidewalk and you're going through the poles there. So yeah, no, I'm not a fan of St. Patrick's Day. A lot of drunken people, and you're right, D, let's just be honest. A lot of drunken white people on St. Patrick's Day. You douchebag. Yeah, right. What did I do? I just wanted to walk down the street. Yeah. Okay, St. Patrick's Day.
All right, and finally, we've been talking all day about our current Chicago mayor. Ben, what do you say we ended out with the former?
I just biked around Lake Michigan.
Who cares? It's Rahm Emanuel. And I'm not sure why, but it seems like our newly elected president, Joe Biden, really likes this guy, because we have yet again talks of Rahm Emanuel possibly getting a position in the Joe Biden presidential administration.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Now, if you recall, right after Biden won the election, there were talks of Rahm Emanuel becoming the new transportation czar or secretary. Ben, I can't recall. What were your thoughts on that again?
I thought it was a really bad idea. I thought it was a really, really bad idea to give Rahm Emanuel a position of so much prominence in the Biden administration, considering how he was essentially ushered out of Chicago as mayor by a populace who would pretty much vote for any incumbent mayor. You could run You could just take any old bum off the street, make that person mayor, and voters in Chicago, I feel shaming voters coming on, will go, I really like that mayor. Ben, you're not fair to that mayor. Ben, give the mayor a chance. And they will vote for him. They will just that's Chicagoans. It's like that's that Chicago thing. Like they vote for their mayors. So it's really bad if a mayor is ushered out of office.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think it was a good idea. By the way, train going by. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg is driving that train. He just got approved by the Senate. I saw before we went on the air. He's now our. So he got the transportation gig, and poor Rahm did not.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's how you felt about that. Well, this news bubbled up about a month or so ago, and here it is again. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Lynn Sweet on the DC beat. Working on that
Working
on that nickname for Lynn Sweet, in December, the Chicago Sun-Times reported ex-Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel was in play for a, quote, high-level ambassadorship. And on Monday night, NBC News said it may be to China or Japan. Emanuel became too hot for Biden to handle for a cabinet post after protests from leaders of public service unions, civil rights groups, and progressive organizations. But for some reason, come hell or high water, Rahm must have a gig in this administration. NBC News said options for Emanuel included China and Japan, with Israel briefly considered and then off the table because Emanuel had a, quote, rocky relationship with Israeli Prime Minister one Benjamin Netanyahu. Emanuel, whose late father, Benjamin, was born in Jerusalem, has worked on Israel peace issues in the Obama and Clinton administrations.
Wow. Well, I'm going to have a revelation here, D. I was a big proponent. Yes, I was not for Rahm getting the job of transportation, but people may forget this. Back in 2011, I was a huge proponent of Barack Obama naming Rahm as ambassador somewhere far away from the city of Chicago, so he could leave the city and stop being our mayor and closing schools and mental health clinics and bringing NATO to town. Remember that one, folks? And I go, yeah, make him ambassador to Japan or China. So Barack Obama didn't listen to me. Heck of a job, Barack Obama. It was all the stories of the day said that Michelle Obama had it up to her eyeballs with Rahm Emanuel in the White House and told Barack Obama to get rid of him. So that's when they came up with this notion. I know what we'll do. We'll do a swap. We'll take Bill Daley as chief of staff, and we'll move Rahm to Chicago to replace Richie Daley as mayor of Chicago. Oh, Chicagoans are so dumb. They won't pay any attention. They won't know. And then Barack Obama campaigned for him. Got him reelected in 2015. Heck of a job, voters in the city of Chicago. Really heck of a job. Man, Mays Jackson was anyway. He got really mad at me when I heck of a job. And then remember he was assaulted Chewy Garcia. That was a good discussion that I had with Mays Jackson. Anyway, so yes, I've always believed when these stories emerge about Rahm that the source of these stories is, drumroll here, Rahm. How about that, D? Rahm calls up NBC. He goes, hey, don't say you heard it from me, but I'm in consideration for an ambassadorship. Whoa, that's breaking news. And then they have like breaking news. Breaking news. Rahm Emanuel is being considered for a job. Who cares? I don't know, D. You think he'll get it? You think he'll get the gig? They'll send him off to China? Hey, Rahm, go to China. Don't call us.
I'm not sure, but in response to the news, Rahm Emanuel responded in saying in both Chinese and Japanese, "Watashi wa kashikoi desu," or "Wohin kong ming ni bushi." I'm smart, you're not.
I'm smart, you're not. Can you? People in China, they'll be like calling up Biden. Look, could you get rid of this guy? He's so obnoxious. He keeps talking about how he's been riding around the Great Wall. I just went for a bike ride. I couldn't find anybody in China that cared about healthcare. Remember that one day? He went for a bike ride around Michigan. Somehow or other, his takeaway is that nobody cared about healthcare. Thanks, Rahm. Thanks for all the great advice given the Democrats.
I guess he biked around Lake Michigan.
Yes. By the way, if he gets the gig, I'm wondering if he's going to stop writing those brilliant essays that you've been up all late, late hours of the night reading.
They're good.
I think he's going to stop those essay writers.
I hope not. They're really good. That's what I'm saying. Like, dude, don't ambassador. What do you be a writer, man? You're all. All right. And before we end today's discussion on our former mayor, what the hell? Why not? How about a little United States ambassador trivia, huh?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You ready for this, Ben?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Now, just to let everybody know, break the fourth wall here a little bit. We did not go over this. No pre-show meeting on this. So we're going to see if Ben knows this. All right. Now, if Rahm Emanuel were to become an ambassador for Joe Biden, he would not be the first. There have actually been 5 ambassadors from Chicago. Ben Joravsky, can you name 3?
Somebody listed this?
Yeah.
These are people who were ambassadors?
From Chicago.
Okay. There's someone named Philip. I can't remember the last name. Is there any Philip there?
Not seeing a Philip here, bud.
Faye. There's a Faye. Is there a Faye there?
Not seeing a Faye here, bud.
Billy Bob? There's a Billy Bob.
Frank! Frank!
Who are the 5?
All right. So the 5 here, we got Republican operative Ron Gidwitz. He served as an ambassador to Belgium during the Trump administration.
I did not know that.
Businessman Louis Sussman was ambassador to England during the Obama administration.
I think I vaguely remember that.
And David Jacobson, along with Bruce Heyman, were ambassadors to Canada, respectively, also during the Obama terms. Someone named Ivo Dalder, I probably butchered that one, president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, served as U.S. ambassador to NATO under Obama.
I did not know any of that. Sorry, I'm really failing. But ask me what wards they lived in. Then I'll tell you. They all lived in the 42nd ward. Guarantee. If they lived in Chicago. Oh, they at least had a condo in the 42nd ward. Okay. All right.
Well, it's okay. You don't have to have the right answer every time, That's all right. Nobody's perfect.
I thought mine, Philip, Billy, Bob, and Faye was pretty good.
Okay, real quick. Who's the 23rd Ward Alderman?
The 20th, Sylvania Tavares.
Nice. All right, there you go.
How did you know?
I don't know. I just assume you know.
Oh my God. For a moment, I panicked. 23rd Ward, I hadn't thought about that anymore. I almost said William Kristiniak, who was the alderman in about 1985, I think.
My God, you're a dork. All right, now remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, like this weekend's, previous weekend's Benny J bonus interviews, available now at chicagoreader.com and wherever else you download podcasts. Guys, we're over 900 episodes now, all right? Episode 1000 coming soon. Ooh, episode 1000. We're on our way there, but go check those shows out. Catch up on any that you've missed. Also, if you download, check out the live stream sometime. Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at the Chicago Reader YouTube channel. And hey, if you feel real crazy, join that live stream chat, huh? Talk to Jay Marie, Brianna, Mike Girardi, Jim, Frank, Kathy, and more. Check us out. And also, reach out to us at Benny J Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Oh, yes, indeed. I want to thank Miles Kampf Lassin, doing a great job as he always does in these times. Of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. Without him, the show would be possible. Back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Play the radio. Play the radio. Play the radio.
I just biked around Lake Michigan. Nearly 1,000 miles.
Play the radio. Play the radio. Play the radio. play the radio.
Nearly 1,000 miles. Nearly 1,000 miles.